You
And
bet.
we are live and recording.
Well, there we go. Hello and good morning to Mark My Words, which is a podcast series that offers a glimpse into alternative paradigms hiding just beneath the surface of everyday life, where our first question of the day is always, what if? And we have with us today Mark Cornelius, author of Rut Management, and also many other books that we'll be discussing as we go through our questions, our teasers of what if. And just to get us started, to get us rolling, my name is Paul, and I just wanted to remind everyone that if you were present at our last episode, we had introduced the idea of rut management and the idea of managing your rut. And what we were going to do this morning was go ahead and tackle the next segment of that, which is what's my rut? Let's define that bad boy. And what we've chosen to do is, as opposed to that, is to go to a different section of some of Mark's work that is based on marginalization. We feel that that might be a necessary topic to discuss. And one of our questions here, I guess I should introduce Mark to you first. Hello, Mark. Good morning.
Greetings, greetings,
I think we
Earthlings.
can. Do you want to pull the coffee cup off of our image there,
I
or do you
do. Hold on here. I can do that. I have the power. There we
faces
go.
and names? There's
Hi.
Mark. There
There
we
we go.
go. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning.
Hey, when we look at this at this subject, this topic of marginalization, which is very present in our society and culture right now, let's pose the first question of how is it that there are so many of us that through our own perceptions may see someone as strikingly uncommon yet acceptable, and yet others as strikingly uncommon and unacceptable, and we kind of push them to the outside and we kind of ignore their needs, their wants, their desires, their opinions. How does that work? And I know that that's at the core of marginalization, and it's the core of your book.
Thanks a lot, Paul. Talk about bad boys. I love that. Yeah, all of these subjects, I think, are going to be right under that category right there. Not just what if, but the bad boy categories of, oh my gosh, I hadn't thought of that. So I'm going to start off with our teaser of the day, and I'm going to take control of the screen one more time, just briefly here, and I'm going to throw a teaser at you. Um, and I'm gonna turn this question around on you for a second. See, that's the way this all works. This is for anyone who's out there thinking and trying to come up with their own answers. What is better, a right versus wrong society, or an honor versus shame society? Those have a lot to do with marginalization, but I'm wondering if any of you out there have even considered, I didn't even know there was a difference. Any thoughts on that from you, Paul, first of all?
Well, that's a great question, Mark. Not about any thoughts that I have, because I've had several different thoughts about that. And one is the right or wrong society. For one thing, I see a notion of innocence or guilt. And guilt ties into shame in many ways. And to me, I see the right or wrong being a component of a guilting type of society. Uh, when you guilt someone, they have the tendency to get the perception that um, I've done something wrong, and there may be a judgment that comes with that.
Good
However,
point.
in an honor, which to me, honor kind of goes with respect, which is always a good thing. Mutual respect is what we would strive for. But also honor and shame, and of course, guilt tying in with shame. The difference for me, at least my perception of the difference of what guilt is I've done something wrong, and shame is I am something wrong. And a
Hmm.
shaming society takes a group of people or a culture or a segment of their society, and whether it's done in a scapegoating manner or over the full scope of the society, sometimes they run into that perception of there's something wrong with these people. It's not that they've committed a wrong act per se, as one would say in a guilting society. It would be something in a shaming society is, I am something, and therefore there is something huge wrong with me. And we've seen that happen in history many times. And I know that you can probably imagine what those kinds of feelings. I can say that if I had to judge which one of those two, obviously you and I in our discussions before, there may be in our questions, maybe only one right answer, but there could be two wrong answers. And you always pose, what if both things are wrong? So
Yes,
I would probably, in my way of getting out of that question and hearing your
jumping out.
and yeah, I'm thinking dodge the bullet, Paul. But anyway, the thing that I was thinking the most is that if we looked at honor and shame, honor versus shame in a manner that can be adaptable, then we're looking at something that could have the element of respect. When I see right and wrong, I also see elements of social control similar to honor and shame. So I don't know whether that's a vertical situation.
I'm not going to grade you on this one. I'm not going to marginalize you into a grade on this, but I'm going to jump in and just, I mean, as long as we're on the subject, which we intended to be anyway, let's talk about the elephant in the room. These are remarkable, and we can call them interesting, we can call them frustrating, we can call them exciting times where society is judging itself harshly and adversely and one against the other, marginalizing one from the other and saying, you have no idea who I am. Okay? You have no idea. So how dare you set rules that set me apart from you? And the other people are going, well, wait a minute, we're just trying to all get along here. And aren't these supposed rules and regulations and options that we have posed for one another civil things that are supposed to help us all get along peacefully? Does this look like peace to you? So that is what marginalization is all about. In an honor versus shame society, you have, and I'll just use a very historical perspective on that. The families of the paparazzi and the paparazzi, listen to me. The Corleone family, for example. Let's use that one as a fictional. The idea that, we all have a family, we all defend one another. If you go outside of that box, we are going to shame you until for even no reason at all, but you just are not behaving within the constructs of what we, quote unquote, want you to. So we're going to make you feel like dirt. All right. In a right versus wrong kind of a Greek philosophy is going to be, well, here are all the different tenets that we have set up, and rule 1, rule 2, rule 3, and make sure not to break rule 4, and here's the negatives and the positives, and here's the list, and you either do these or you don't. Okay, I don't care if they're right or wrong to you, they are the list. So it's a fact-based versus a family-based kind of relationship. So all that being said, talking around the circle of it, people are looking at this and going, I'm right, you're wrong, or I'm part of this family, you're not. So what are we supposed to do with that? And I think it all boils down personally, and the book would, I think, agree with me on this since I wrote it, that we need to form a we need to look at a higher purpose. Not what I think, not what Paul thinks, not my opinion versus their opinion, not their opinion versus my opinion. It's what can we do, not just as a society, but maybe even above society, to come to an understanding, to listen to one another, I dare I say, and we'll talk about that a lot later, and maybe find a way to to avoid our opinions and start really identifying with one another, start really understanding the concepts that have driven each of us individually. Not to say that mine you have to embrace and endorse, okay? There's that tolerance thing we talk about as a society. You must tolerate me, Paul. You must, because I am who I am, and you must. Well, maybe you're not tolerant of me. So let's get away from that misused phrase of tolerance and start talking about enveloping and understanding of what it is that drives each of us, and break away from that concept of a society where every rule has to be followed, or in some cases, every rule has to be broken because, I just am not a part of this. Does that make sense?
It does. As a matter of fact, it carries over into some other points that you had brought up in your book concerning marginalization. And I'm sure you'll probably pop up the website where one can get a hold of a copy of that book soon. But long and short of it in there is that the true answer, just as you said with in your book about marginalization, we can exist as a right versus wrong society and a shame and honor society. Marginalizers can be marginalized and vice versa. And we find that's kind of back in the 1950s, I believe there were sociologists that were calling something similar to in-group and out-group. And the scapegoating or whatever of course, it was in relationship to what had happened prior to the Second World War in Germany. And of course, with a lot of that interest being placed there was a lot of observation and opinion about how a particular group of people became shamed and were therefore guilty for being who they were rather than what they were doing. And we probably saw that and see that in many segments of different societies worldwide. So it's interesting. What do you have to say right now in the few minutes that we have left? What do you have to say about marginalizers being marginalized themselves and vice versa?
Thanks for that segue, by the way. And I say this, you and I can sit here and, sound very heady about it and like we know all the answers. The truth is, everyone has to ask this question introspectively, in their head, in their heart, and act on it accordingly. So I just took a little something from the screen of the book here. Hold on here, if you could read that. And this is from the book Marginalized. And it does address exactly what you just said. It's an exploration of not just, and I'm going to dare say this is a twist, the marginalizers and those who are marginalized are the same. They're the same people. I can accuse you and separate you away. I can also be separated. And suddenly that's exactly what we were seeing out there in what's going on with all of the protests and riots. No one is right. No one is honored. Everyone is wrong. Everyone is separated. And they're even within the groups, no one agrees. So what distinguishes one from the other? It has what makes us socially and spiritually The same, those are questions that each person has to look at themselves. And so I have a question that I ask throughout the book, and it has to do with this right here. Wait a minute. Stop for just a second and look at some ways that we can identify with one another rather than try to separate one another. That's the key I'm looking for, that commonality. Not trying to get you to agree with me, not having you try to get me to change my mind, but in a sense, trying to get us to find the same mind together. And,
I see. So what you're trying to perceive in your element there is that because I am both marginalizer and marginalized, I love what you said about wait a minute, hold
yeah,
on.
hold
I
on.
need to settle back down and kind of see what's in my heart and what I think about it, which of course is part of your critical thinking. And that's probably another topic to be discussed at a later time. I don't even know where we are on our time at this point, but we're probably somewhere toward the end of a 15-minute podcast.
We're close. So we said 15. And for those folks out there who are listening, we're going to try to keep these to 15 to 20-minute bites so that they can consider these things, think about them, send in questions. The next scope of what we're going to be talking about is going to be from another book. Yay! These are, and by the way, this is something that any of you can try at home. This is not, this is not knife throwing. I'm going to say, hey, try this at home. Pick up a pen and a pad of paper or a computer and a keyboard. Start typing away. Let your thoughts flow. It's a good way for you to try to get a handle on what you're thinking, what you try to convey to others. And watch out, you might actually write a book. It took me a couple of tries to get it right, but I think I'm getting there. So with that being said, we're going to share the screen again. And I'm going to go to, let's see here. I say I'm going to go to a place. And there we go. Hold on here. And I'm going to ask you a teaser question for next week. Let's see. What is the difference between weeds and flowers? And this is going to be a thought that I'm actually going to answer for you. It seems like we're asking a lot of questions where we don't always answer them. We let you answer, but this one I'm going to answer for you. A weed is a flower that most people don't want, right? Flowers are weeds that most people do want. And there, right there, is a very good way to look at marginalization. We can all be weeds, we can all be flowers, but what is it we're trying to do with one another? What is it we're trying to combine so that we all are in the same, for lack of a better word, garden or landscape? And
that
with
that paints a picture right there.
Huh?
I said that paints a picture right there, and food for thought.
Food for thought, right?
While we're painting pictures, would you like to put up your website where you can?
I'm going right there. Okay.
Just for now, and I'm sure that there may be some folks out there that may have an opportunity to take a glance at some of the other things, other books that you've written.
Yeah.
But primarily, if we're talking about marginalization, get a chance to take a peek at it and be thinking about these things, because there may be a way that soon, as we get more interactive, that Mark will be able to address some of your own personal questions.
And here's some ways for us to keep in dialogue and for you to also engage from some good reading, I hope. But first of all, obviously, stay tuned and watch out for our podcasts of Mark My Words, where we ask that question, what if? There's an email address where I can be personally contacted, and we can share, and I can get information to Paul, too, at markwrites@gmail.com. There's a Facebook page right there. You can catch that link in Facebook of Mark My Words. And there's a website where you can look at all of the different writings of said author at www.rutmanagement.com. And then last but not least, there's a YouTube where you can catch our podcasts and some different postings. And we'd love to have you join us there. So take that screenshot before we go and let us help you or at least get involved in a great dialogue with you so we can stop marginalization and start, here's the segue, wait for it, Paul, where we can start listening to one another. So
That's grand.
Next week, what are we going to talk about?
I believe what we're going to talk about here is, let's see, where are we? By the way, before we go any further, Mark, just as a quick editing note, when you showed your screen, you're on when you shared your screen, all I'm seeing is the shortcut to the contact info.
Oh, so
yeah,
right now you're not seeing the Mark My Words screen?
No, actually, what I'm seeing it as a thumbnail, but I don't see it open.
Well, let's fix
You've got like a PDF. Yeah, you've got a whole. Obviously, you have all of yours as thumbnails there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you double click on it, I can see you double clicking, but it's underneath that. Can you minimize that?
Let's see. Let me try to open it and see what happens here. That does not open it. Then is what you're saying.
It doesn't. No. But if you drag that page down, let's see what happens. There we are.
There we are. Hold on here. I'm going to go to another screen. Hold on here. I'm going to try something else.
There you go.
Oh.
That's up now.
It's up now.
And yeah, and also the one before it. I think the one that you had for episode 3. The podcast there that was about the wonderful parallel you made between flowers and weeds. That didn't pop up either. It just came up as a thumbnail.
Well, we're going to fix that. So let's see here. Matter of fact, well, we're sharing too much. We're oversharing now. Okay. I will fix that. But as a matter of fact, let's see if I could pull that up just right here. And, well, since I quoted it, I'll quote it again. What's the difference between a flower and a weed? And a flower is a weed that most people do want, and a weed is a flower that most people do not want. So,
absolutely.
There you go. We'll just quote that, and maybe we'll pull that up next time if we need to.
Or, hey, where were we when we started looking at editing notes?
We were talking about next week, and I think we were going to segue into another book that talks about, as a matter of fact, let's see if this pulls up, Paul, because I think this is going to be a good one for us. See if I can pull it up. I know I'm sharing right now, but I'm going to try something here. Does that pull
There we
up?
go.
Okay.
It pulled right up.
There we are. So, what does that look like to you?
It looks like you're getting ready to break the rules.
That's what yeah. But what rules and whose rules are we breaking? So
that's it exactly.
We're going to talk about a book called Unmeasuring. And this is where the rubber meets the road. It is not just about discussing the idea of marginalizing or being marginalized and whether those are good things or shame or honor. What do we do about that? How do we start unmeasuring and start really coming together in a sharing kind of way? So we'll talk a lot about listening next week, and we
Sounds
hope you'll
good.
listen in.
And I do too. I do as well. Thank you, Mark. I guess we'll just jump off here right now.
Yep,
And
stop recording. So long.
okay. So we've already stopped.
No, we haven't, but we will.
Oh,
Right
okay.
now.